Now, let's return to our main story because the Prime Minister will deliver a speech later this morning in which he's expected to say it will not be business as usual when Parliament returns next week.
This comes as his government faces criticism over plans to raise taxes and cut winter fuel payments for millions of pensioners. Let's speak now to Labour Party Chair Ellie Reeves. Morning to you. So are things going to get worse before they get better, if they get better?
Good morning. The Prime Minister will use his speech this morning to talk about the need to fix the foundations. We've inherited a financial black hole from the previous government, and that requires tough choices. So, you know, it's really important that the Prime Minister is honest with the public about the scale of the challenge. When we got into government just a few weeks ago, we discovered that there was a 22 billion black hole in the country's finances. And it's that which has led to that really tough decision around the winter fuel allowance. We didn't want to be in a position where we had to make that decision, but because of the state of the finances that we were left with, that it was a decision that had to be made.
But also, you are now in government, you have the power to make choices, and this government has chosen to spend on public sector pay, and now you might be able to say that as a result, pensioners are suffering.
Well, we've had industrial disputes that have gone on for a long time that the previous government didn't have the appetite to resolve, and that meant people couldn't get to work on the train or they couldn't get the hospital appointment that they needed. It's also important to note that with the pay review bodies, the previous government didn't factor in anything around affordability. Again, something that we inherited from the previous government. But with the Winter Fuel Allowance, it's also important to remember that pensioners who are in receipt of pension credit will still get the Winter Fuel Allowance. And there's something like 900,000 pensioners who are eligible for pension credit that aren't currently receiving it. So we want to make sure that everyone that's entitled to that benefit gets it, and in turn they would still get the Winter Fuel Allowance. It's a really difficult and tough decision, but we saw what happened when the previous government lost control of the country's finances with that Liz Truss mini budget. It crashed the economy. It sent interest rates spiralling. That had a huge impact on families, on businesses. And we have to be honest with the public. We can't have a repeat of that, which is why it's incredibly important that we fix the foundations and we don't have the losing control of the country's finances that we saw previously.
Again, I would say that this is a choice you have made. You have chosen that pensioners will suffer and chosen to put the money somewhere else.
Well, pensioners who are in receipt of pension credit will still get the Winter Fuel Allowance. It's not a decision that we wanted to take. It's a decision that we've had to take to keep control of the country's finances and avoid a return to what happened after that mini budget that crashed the economy because it included unfunded spending commitments. Pensioners will still get the triple lock on their pension. Pensioners that receive pension credit will still get the Winter Fuel Allowance. We've got an ambitious programme to insulate the coldest homes, which will benefit many pensioners as well. So these are tough choices, but they're tough choices because of the state the country has been left in after 14 years of Conservative government.
So pensioners who might be on £12,000 are going to lose out. They're going to lose money. They're going to need to find that extra money from somewhere else. Do you think £12,000 is enough to manage on?
Look, this is tough choices. This is tough choices because of that £22 billion black hole in the country's finances. We didn't want to be in this position. We didn't want to have to make these choices. We're making them because of that black hole in the country's finances. Look, you know, if we did nothing at all, then the risk would be exactly the same as what happened after that mini budget from Liz Truss. The markets would crash, interest rates would go skyrocketing again. People are still paying the price of that mini budget in their mortgage repayments. And I don't think that your viewers, that families and businesses would thank us if we'd allowed that to happen again. remain. So it is a tough choice. And, we know how difficult these choices are and the impact of them. But we need to make sure that we have control of the country's finances.
We know there has been concerns raised by members of your own party. In fact, outside your party, the director of Age UK has described this decision as reckless and wrong. What would you say to that?
Look, it's difficult. It's a difficult decision. It's one that we didn't want to have to be in a position to have to make. But we won't play hard and loose with the country's finances. We know the consequences of that, and families and businesses are still paying the price of that. It's a really difficult decision, a really tough decision. But, when the Prime Minister makes his speech today, he'll talk about those tough choices. Under the last government, we saw sticking plaster politics, papering over the cracks without dealing with the foundations. And things will be different under this Labour government. People voted for change just 8 weeks ago, and we were honest with the public in that general election campaign about the tough choices and the estate of our public services and of the country's finances. It's important that we are honest with the public about the difficulties and what we have inherited. OK,
you say you were honest during that campaign. In May, Keir Starmer urged the Conservatives to rule out scrapping winter fuel payments. Now he's in power, he seems to have changed his mind.
When we got into government just 8 weeks ago, one of the first things that the Chancellor did was an audit of the country's finances. And that's what revealed that 22 billion black hole. The OBR, the Office of Budget Responsibility, didn't know about this overspend. In the first quarter of this financial year, the overspend was something like £5 billion, which is unprecedented. We need to get a firm grip of this, because if we don't, we will see a return of what happened when the previous government lost control of the country's finances.
Ellie Reeves, thank you very much indeed.